My name is Sach. I have JJ, Laura, and Marjan next to me. Maybe look to kick this off. Maybe we'll start with Marjan and work our way this way. We can just give a short 1-minute intro as to who you are, what you do.
Sure. Hi, I'm Marjan Moghaddam. I'm a pioneering, widely exhibited digital artist and also OG NFT artist. I work primarily in 3D CG. I'm known for my original and unique style of figuration in 3D CG and also my art hacks, some of which have gone viral. I've sold into top collections on Super Rare and also other platforms. I was in the first IRL museum exhibition of NFT art. I've been an Adobe artist in resident, Forbes' best AR art, and also I was Meta Facebook's artist for the digital collectible function last July. And I'm also in the BBC documentary, Art Goes Digital. I'm the female artist between Beeple and Xcopy.
Laura.
Well, I don't know how to follow that. My name is Laura Rafferty. I'm a lifelong traditional artist who went digital in the early 90s. I'm also a published coloring book illustrator along with a lot of other things, but mostly I'm just here because I love NFTs and I do believe that this is the way of the future.
Cool. JJ?
My name's, whoa, sorry. I talk a lot. I don't really even need the mic probably. My name's JJ Weinberg. Got into NFTs in 2021. The first NFT I sold is called a non-feelable tickle. If that gives you an idea about the way I look at the space and think of things differently. I have a Bob Ross inspired parody project. It is a 10,000 collection that is kind of dead in the water right now, to be honest with you. But it's a celebration of the joy that Bob has brought to millions of people. It started for me as an idea for a coffee table book in 2014. And then when I saw what CryptoPunks were doing in the space, I was like, wait, this is what I've had this on the back burner for all these years. And in 2021, I started as an NFT project, and that got me really, really deeply into the space to, I have my own award-winning metaverse. And in 2021, I was nominated for Best Traditional Artist turned NFT Artist for NFT.NYC. I had one of my digital derivatives sell in an auction house alongside Banksy and Warhol, and it was all because of the acceleration of the attention in this space. So it's been an amazing journey, but it does have its lulls. So
Great, thanks. So I am neither an artist nor a tech guy. So I'm not in this rarefied circle. I've been, let's say, active in this space for 2 years. I don't even like the term collector because I think it's pretentious. I buy art. I like art because it just moves me at a visceral level. I saw, when I saw what was happening in the digital space, clearly it was a pivot point for me. And so I am now working on building a new business that connects any kind of dynamic art. Actually, ironically, it doesn't necessarily need to be digital. I think it'll be largely digital. But any kind of dynamic art to the human emotions it generates in a viewer, measured in real time, where those emotions are then fed back to the art, and the art morphs. So it is essentially taking what has historically been a one-way journey and converting it into a two-way journey or a dialogue. So that's a little bit of my background. So maybe look, I'd like to now ask each of you. I'll start with you, JJ. What's your journey been so far? How's your this, let's say, recent history been? What's your journey?
Well, like I said, being a physical artist, my Bob Ross illustration was colored pencil on paper, the farthest thing from digital. But when I saw the space, you scan it in, and I really started levering into the digital as a notion that, I want to do this coffee table book, but now with the ability for this to be collectible and a person to say they have ownership of this illustration, it just changed all of the ideas. So leaning into the metaverse and all of that kind of stuff, like my hat, I can scan the side of my hat here, and it links to the NFT. that is one of the assets in the collection is this hat. And it's a token gated thing. So anybody that has one of the NFTs that has this hat, they have the opportunity to purchase one of these as a physical piece. So I look at all of the opportunity that it's creating for us to just leverage the future of what it means to have a digital asset. So,
Laura.
Well, I started NFTs in 2021, and I came in with a really small group of very dedicated and passionate people, and we sort of worked together as a community to teach each other and figure out things, and sort of, it was my first time into crypto, lifelong artist, first time crypto, so it was a long learning curve for me. But I only started minting once I understood the technology and what it meant, because I felt like, this is sort of a revolution in the way that we think about ownership and how we consider digital art in general. And I wanted to make sure that that was the right move for myself as an artist. But since then, it's had a lot of ups and downs. I've had a lot of really amazing, bidding wars and crazy things happen, and you have those high points, but you also have, tough times, like right now we're going through a bear market. And I have to say, it's that original community of friends who have really supported me throughout this journey. So lean on your friends and peers, because it helps a lot.
Marjan.
Yeah, actually, I always say I look younger than I actually am, but my first exhibited computer animation was in 1984, and it was done on a Commodore 64. It was a VHS recording of me painting live with the first paint program on the Commodore 64. And back then, I could only show that work in East Village galleries and like clubs, because regular galleries, I would go to them, and their attitude in the 1980s was, if it was done on a computer, it's not art. So I couldn't even get legitimacy for it. I ended up doing some of the more prestigious shows I did in the late 80s by calling it video art. I couldn't even call it computer art. It wouldn't even show. So monetization and selling the work was not really an option for me in the 80s. In the 90s, I started to do better. I was in the first major computer art exhibition at a Soho gallery in 1995, and I did a head immersive, kind of like early virtual reality installation with fractal animations, and I did animated paintings that were projected. I did prints, and then I became the featured artist for .com Gallery, the first international forum for the digital arts, sponsored by Prodigy Inc. in 1996. That was the #2 biggest internet company then. But what did I actually sell? Well, I sold some prints, and that was it. I mean, I received commissions from the tech companies, and then the gallery that had my early VR installation in it, they kept it past the show, and they would rent time, people would pay to go into it, and they gave me half of that money. So it was really strange ways of monetizing. By the end of the 90s, I decided, fine, if the only thing that sells is prints, I'm going to have to materialize my 3D CG as large format prints and start to sell those. But the problem that I had with that was they weren't really selling for the right amount of money as far as I was concerned. And the primary reason was that the collectors who were buying fine arts photography prints or prints from paintings were not willing to spend that money on a print that was digital art. And that was the battle that went on for many, many years. And many gallerists would say, you just can't sell prints like that if they're digital. And then in the 2000s, I was in a lot of major computer animation festivals. I've been in SIGGRAPH 4 times. That's the world's top computer animation festival. I've won ResFest, the list goes on. So I started to get a lot of grants for my work. And I've received a Rockefeller Fund, Brooklyn Arts Council, NISCA, Experimental TV Fund, so on and so forth, because my first primary love was to do these animated paintings in 3D CG, and it was how do you sell these? So I went with the grant money thing, and then between 2009 and 2015, I did my Of Revolutions collection, which was large format print, sculpture, animated paintings, etc. By this point, I decided to follow in the footsteps of video artists by creating technically speaking, video art objects that were computer animation. But you know what? Those still were not really selling the way the prints were and the sculpture. So it was still about materializing the digital art, not the digital art itself. And then another problem I had is so many of my animation work on the festival circuit ended up on all these DVDs, and they never had my permission, they never paid me. So controlling the work that went out there became impossible. And you couldn't really protect the work. Even when you put it inside of a video art object, which is what video artists started to do to protect edition numbers, to prevent duplication, etc. I mean, it was still easy. I mean, I always say I have a lot of pieces that were built around a Raspberry Pi, but anybody could open that box and pop out the SD card. So there was no way to enforce it. And if you set the animation out to a gallery, it wasn't like a painting that would come back to you. So if it sold or if it didn't sold, there would be a record of it. There was no way to enforce any of that. Anyways, to cut a long story short, around December of 2019, somebody just tweeted me on saying, I love your art hacks, I want to collect them, will you please tokenize them so I can collect them? And at that time I was busy with production, but I decided as soon as I have a chance. So later that year in 2020, I minted my first computer animations, animated paintings on Super Rare, and immediately proceeded to sell them into top collections. I've sold into top collections and also on other platforms, and been selling one-on-one NFT art. As I mentioned, I did the first, I was in the first museum exhibition, IRL museum exhibition of NFTs in the BBC documentary. And last year, I sort of did generative works. My Glitch Gods, a collection of 20 Glitch God animations on Quantum sold out in 1 minute. Some of them are in the NFT.NYC showcase. You can see them in there. And I also did a really exciting generative project last year, the Berlin Wall Memorial NFT. And that NFT project, we raised over $180,000, a good bit of which went towards democracy funds worldwide and evacuating Ukrainian refugees. So I'm very proud of that project, an example of art and doing good in the world, and also digital art and NFTs and Glitch, because those were glitched pieces. And last but not least, this week I have a solo show at Cultist Gallery in London, and editions that are going on Tezos. This is my first Tezos outing, if you may. And just today, 2 hours ago, I opened a group exhibition at Larsen Warner Gallery in Stockholm, Sweden, with other fellow NFT artists like Fuck Render and Linda Dunya. So.
Great, thank you guys. I'll give a slightly different perspective, or a non-artist perspective. For me, the aha moment was essentially, NFTs, smart contracts, and blockchains. There were all these enabling pieces that, for me, were going to totally transform the art world. And the basis for that transformation, and I'll kind of use simplistic analogies for this, was, we're going to start telling a world that is accustomed to painting on a canvas, using brushes and specific kinds of paints. You're going to go to them and say, you know what, you're going to go to that world and say, there's an entirely new canvas now that's available to you, and that's a digital canvas. And two, you are now going to be given a set of tools that, for me, were going to be, prolifically enabling in creative expression. So you're going to be effectively giving artists paintbrushes that, one, not only could paint in 2 dimensions, but could paint in 3 dimensions. And two, you're giving them canvases that, that when the painting is complete, it's actually not. It is not static. It is something that can continue to evolve and continue to change. And that to me was just profound. I mean, I thought that the artist community was really being empowered creatively in a way that was exponential. And then the other thing that really moved me was these notions of like artist commissions, and secondary sales and stuff like that. I mean, I have a very cynical view of how the traditional art world works, and for me, it's, if there is one party that consistently gets screwed, it's the artist. And I think that this was really a way of leveling the playing, not leveling, but rebalancing the playing field. And lastly, as a selfish plug to what I'm doing, so what I'm doing is effectively taking, as I said, any kind of dynamic art. My idea is, art's objective is to solicit feelings, emotions, senses in the viewer. Now, through, and I'll dramatically oversimplify this, through the heartbeat measurement of a wearable, We have a technology that can effectively determine the level of oxytocin and dopamine secreted in your brain when you're seeing a piece of art. And we take that and we convert it into numerical data that we feed back to the art, and based on parameters that the artist decides, the art will change. This would never have been possible before. This becomes enabled because of these building blocks that I'm talking about. And so that's really what got me so jacked up about getting into this area from a business perspective, and trying to come up with a tool which, if notwithstanding the like frigid winter we're in right now, would hopefully ideally create a whole new category of art. So that was really where my journey started and where it's taken me. And I have the extraordinarily envious task now of trying to raise some money in possibly the worst time ever. But
or potentially the best time ever, because again, a lot of what this quote unquote bear market did was shake out the bad actors, because there's a lot of people in this space that shouldn't have really been here. They were just looking for money grabs, right? And what you were talking about a minute ago made me think about how I got really into NFTs. My story is I was developing a platform for artists called Artunity. And the concept was it allowed you to donate to an artist for a chance to win a work of art. So it's like Instagram meets GoFundMe with a Las Vegas spin on it, right? And the concept through the platform was that there was going to be a resale function, that the person who potentially won a high-valued piece of art could actually then re-put it into the platform. And then the artist, for the first time in history, this was in my business plan in 2016, would get a royalty payment for the resale. So like the democratization, and somebody had shared to me like the notion of NFTs being, hey, that's where this is happening. We're starting to empower the artist once again, And the other thing that you made me think of when you were talking about, because we talk about digital art, right? And I was a painter. I'm a painter on canvas. I illustrate. My Bob Ross thing is a colored pencil illustration, right? But like I have painter friends in the audience right now that are masterful painters, right? And it doesn't have to be even created digitally. It's like you can take your canvas, your fine art, you get the great photo, and then they can bring it into your platform and watch it evolve and turn into something else. In 2016, I did this painting for my dad when the Cubs won the World Series. I know this is like very narrow niche and it might not resonate with you, but what had happened is his reaction to the painting, if you had his dopamine meter on, he started crying. He's like visceral, and then it wound up on SportsCenter's top plays because of the moment, the story behind it. And it's like crypto winners, bear markets don't matter. Like as an artist, you are your market. Of course it matters. I say that like somewhat flippantly, I guess. Of course it matters. It makes it maybe easier to get into, the bull rush of something. But if you're your own market, if you're doing things with authenticity, you'll find your people. Your people will resonate with you no matter where they are, I think. So
I was just going to add, for me, it's a lot more than the dopamine hits, because for me, I'm able to sell the digital art in its natal form, and that was never possible before because I had to always materialize it as something, as an object to sell. So the number one most important thing is, for the first time ever since the birth of computer art, we actually have the correct form for the sale, collection, and archiving, and establishing the provenance for digital art. So that in itself is an art historic significant event that has happened. The second thing that I would say is the high sales figures that digital art, JPEGs, 3D animations, AI art, etc., has generated in the last 3 years have legitimized the medium as far as Sotheby's is concerned, as far as Christie's is concerned. Tyler Hobbs is in Pace Gallery this month. That's a blue chip gallery. So take a moment to consider. I gave you my story from the 80s, and that's why I can tell you this is a miracle.
Yeah.
For like 40 years, as digital artists, we've been waiting for this moment. And whether you like the work or not, or think the sales figures are legitimate or not, you have to understand what these sales figures have done is to legitimize the medium and the artists employing it in the world of contemporary art.
That's awesome, yeah.
So while it's been a monologue of all of us, we actually, wanted to pause and maybe see if there were any questions in the audience, so we could make this less just us talking and interactive. So can I ask if anybody has any questions? Please.
What would you tell artists that are just getting started now about their opportunities?
So the question is, what would you tell artists now if they were just getting? What would you tell artists now if they were just starting their careers or getting started now?
Be very visible on social media. I got the big high NFT sales figures because I had a huge following on Instagram and viral metrics. Build a community on some social media platform. Being part of the community is really important. I think join as many Discord and Twitter chat groups as you can. Ask other artists to add you, they will. And the other thing that I would recommend is look at collabs. The same way collabs drive metrics on social media, they can drive up your prices in the crypto art and NFT space.
Anyone else?
Yeah, sure. I'd also just like to add that, when you're getting started as a digital artist, I think a lot of times it's overwhelming. It's a lot of information. Most of us as artists aren't really familiar with crypto, so you have to really buckle down and learn it. But it's worth learning the right way. Don't jump in too quickly. Sometimes I made some mistakes when I first started out that I would have done differently now. And I think if I had just taken a beat, not been so very excited and wanting to mint that first NFT, then I would have done things a little different. So I would just say, just take a beat. You have all the time in the world. We are still early.
JJ, anything?
YouTube.
Okay. There was a question, I think, on that side. Does that person still want to pose a question?
Right here. Did you?
Yeah. Did you have a question? No? Okay. Oh, please.
Well,
So just to repeat the question for everyone. So the question was, what were your suggestions be for somebody, moving from the traditional art space into the digital art space, and in particular, with the advent of AI, it's like, everyone's becoming an artist. So any thoughts on that?
Let me speak to the AI thing first. For one thing, again, those are trends, and like the AI thing is a trend right now, and it's great for opportunity. Like Bob Ross said, he believes there's an artist hidden in every one of us, right? And so my Bob Ross thing, he's painting and allowing you to see that you can be an artist no matter what level you're at, right? AI has, like Bob Ross's AI would be insane because it allows everyone to be an artist of sorts. But at the same time, I guess what I'm saying is it is potentially a trend for right now, and we have to see how it plays out and the longevity of it. You know what I mean? So I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't just follow a trend. If you're an AI artist, that's amazing, and do that. But it's like what you were saying before when you were getting advice from people, when we were back in the room, and people saying, oh, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. But you didn't abandon your traditional. So say a little bit about what you did with your traditional art and stayed on it.
Yeah, sure. So even though I have a large traditional art background, and that's sort of what I've been doing for the majority of my life, I did transition into digital art in the 80s and early 90s. And unfortunately, like Marjan's story, it wasn't really widely accepted. Now, luckily, we have a lot easier time. So what I would suggest is first make sure that you photograph your work well. The best way to do that is to make sure that you do it in a shady spot, not in the sun, but in bright and direct sunlight. So I would usually photograph my work in front of a large window and make sure that there were no hot spots anywhere. Also, make sure to square up your image. Those are just basic things, but as a traditional artist, those are things you're going to have to get used to, is digitizing your work. So I think we're out of time, unfortunately.
Maybe Marjan, 5 seconds.
Well, just quickly, I think a lot of traditional collectors are entering the space, and I think phygital is now a thing. Galleries are actually even using the term. So if your work is physical in nature, consider tokenizing it and doing sales as a combination of physical and digital. That is being targeted as the new front.
Yeah, I've got multiple things on Maker's Place real quickly. As an example, I've got a canvas and I just have the NFC chips embedded in the canvas. So if someone buys the canvas, they scan the NFC chip, it takes them to the record on the blockchain. And the reason why I have it on Maker's Place specifically is because, the ability for credit cards, it takes out the barrier to entry with NFTs a lot of times with the having to have a wallet and not friction. Knowing, the friction, thank you, of, not having Ethereum or whatever. And so that's another thing, is trying to find the platforms that lessen the friction as a traditional artist. Okay. Does Super Rare have the credit card option? I don't know if they do. So then that to me, the Super Rare is a great platform, of course, for being on Super Rare. Congratulations, that's already an achievement. That's awesome. And if you can find native Super Rare collectors, fantastic. But if you have traditional collectors, you need to lessen the friction. So try and get on Maker's Place or get on a platform where that credit card thing is an option. And then when you're lessening the friction, so if you're talking to your collector, you're saying, hey, you've heard of NFTs. Doesn't matter necessarily if you don't know. You're going to get my painting, but you have this extra layer of backing. Think about something like Andy Warhol. One of Andy Warhol's major problems was that his work was made to look manufactured, right? But if he had an NFT, the only way that we trace what an Andy Warhol is authentic or not is through provenance. But now the blockchain takes care of that. So I would just, maybe consider using that as an analogy when you're talking to your traditional collectors, that they're getting an extra, basically.
Yeah, I mean,
I think a lot of the super rare collectors, like especially mine, I mean, they primarily collect on super rare, and some of them have pretty much told me they will not buy it unless it's on super rare. So there's also that.
But I would, just like to add maybe one thing, which is a more general comment, and that is, I would definitely reach out to any friends you have, colleagues, other artists that have made the transition you have. I mean, one thing I've seen in this community is, they're very, very open, collaborative, like wanting to share experiences, will help you through that journey. It really is, there's a very, very strong sense of community. There's not this, this is mine and I'm not going to share my secret sauce with you. So I that would be my my one addition. Okay, I think.
By the way, so Stephen, just a quick interruption. The next panel isn't going to show up, so Stephen specifically. However, we have a few more minutes if you want to continue to the Q&A, and then we'll continue with the...
Yeah, I just wanted to say something, because I actually did that for NFT that I sold in 2020 on Super Rare, where I said in the description that I would send a print to the collector. And the problem that then happened is I had no idea where the collector was. And so anyways, the collector was in a country that's shipping an artwork at that size. It got stuck in customs for like 4 months. And then the collector kept complaining. I'm like, after that, I stopped doing that. It's like, I don't want to deal with it. And I might be doing a drop with prints, but I'm just going to put them in a poster roll. I'm not mounting, I'm not doing any of that, and I'm keeping the sizes down just because of the customs issue. That's where galleries are better equipped to handle this sort of thing.
Not necessarily, but yes.
Yeah, but Lauren, yeah.
I just wanted to add as well, a lot of my traditional art collectors have not bridged the gap to NFTs, and that's totally fine. Basically what I do in that situation is if those collectors buy my pieces, then I make sure to never make it an NFT. So I destroy any digital files rather, that would, allow me to make an NFT. So I keep smaller file sizes just so that I can keep a record of it for my portfolio. But as far as like the large digital files, I actually give those to my collectors so that they can make prints. So this is sort of a way for you to ensure that your traditional art collectors don't have to worry about you ever making an NFT out of work that they own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to circle back around to those mistakes that you now feel like you've made. What would you warn people against? At least one mistake that you would not want to make again.
So the question is,
I'll go first.
What mistakes would you warn other artists against?
Because of crypto winter and the fact that some platforms sell, some platforms don't sell, and a lot of galleries are entering this space, there's a lot of startups that may disappear after 6 months or a year. And there are contracts that you sign when you do an NFT with them, and sometimes you transfer it to their wallet. I would say that right now, my recommendation to every NFT fine arts artist is to put in a duration in their contracts, or else people might hold on to the work for like 2 years and not be able to sell it. Whereas if you had that work and you put it somewhere else, you would be able to sell it. So that's turned into a disaster. And I would not sign any contract unless you spelled it out. You have this work for 3 months, 6 months, or a year to sell. And after that, it comes back to me. Or else you're going to have work sitting there on places where they can't sell the work, and you don't even have the ability to sell it elsewhere on other marketplaces.
Yeah, and that's common with galleries too.
Yeah,
you say this is the duration of time that you get to do it.
And then what happens is there's unsold work you have out there, and it's not even because the work isn't sellable, but because it's with people who are not able to sell it.
Okay, guys, maybe 2 minutes left. So just very briefly, what does the future look like? 6 to 12 months out for you guys.
I think the future, based on what I'm seeing, is a lot of the collector, FOMO has disappeared. So what is actually going to happen now is onboarding traditional art collectors, as far as I'm concerned. The traditional art world is discovering digital art. So that's where the front is. But I think that when you're looking at the people who had the buzz early, especially in 2020, who jumped into the space because of the Beeple sale, et cetera, that stuff is drying out. A lot of those people are out of funds to buy art, and they haven't been able to monetize the work that they've bought. I mean, people are selling things they bought for 20 ETH for 0.0 something now, just to take the loss, for taxes, et cetera. So I would say finding ways of reaching traditional art collectors, and also building communities specifically for digital collectibles through your social media. That's something I worked with Meta on. So.
Well, I would say that, like, we talked about this in the room before we got out here. For me, it's bet on you. I'm betting on me 10,000%. Everything I do in my life, and especially in this space, is a legacy play. So if you buy into anything, you're buying into what I don't care about markets. I'm my own market. You know what I mean? And it's like, maybe people don't see it right now. That's okay, no matter where you're at. But if you keep betting on you, if you've got something to bring, eventually people will find it. That's just the way I feel about it.
Yeah. Lauren, last thoughts.
Well, I'd say I see the future is bright but long. We have, if you look at the past, we can draw on history to help us here. Digital art took about 10 to 15 years to gain legitimacy from its inception in the major markets. So unfortunately, we have a long haul ahead. So buckle in, don't burn out. Just lean on your friends and you'll be fine.
Great, thank you. Thanks all of you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you very much.